Hey, what's up everybody? Tarafdar back with a brand new video. Today I want to talk about CPN numbers. This is one of those things that I get asked quite a bit. Recently I did a YouTube live and a gentleman asked me what a CPN number is and how to use those CPN numbers. Do you have access to getting those CPN numbers? Can you give me a resource where I can access those CPN numbers? And generally speaking, the CPN numbers, it's a very dangerous game. You definitely don't want to get involved in it. There's just so much negatives to that, and there's a huge negative connotation to the CPN game. See, a lot of people in the past have used CPNs to access credit. They were very successful in doing so, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's an ethical thing to do. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's not going to put you in any type of danger. The reality with CPNs, and this is one of the things that I want you to really focus on, is that it's an illegal instrument that's technically used to deceive creditors into giving you credit that you otherwise would not qualify for. That's the basis of it. And I've had a lot of people telling me that CPNs are in fact legal. You can use that information, you can use the CPN numbers to get credit. And I've had a lot of people say, well, Ali, I've had some decent luck with CPNs. I got some credit cards at the beginning and all that kind of stuff. And my immediate advice to them was, look, at the beginning you can definitely get some credit. You can get access to some credit, decent amount of credit with CPNs if you modify them and all that kind of stuff. But there's a predatory risk to that, right? So let me give you some examples. A CPN typically comes with your name attached, right? It could be a completely new identification number, a 9-digit number, similar to the employer identification number, which is your EIN or your social security number. And if they're unregistered, that means that they've been taken out of the system and they haven't been circulated for a long time. Some of these CPNs trigger a reactivation. And what I mean by that is you might have some credit at the beginning, you have success with it, but over time what happens is the system picks up on the reactivation of an old CPN that was probably from someone who was deceased from a long time ago. So that's one thing that you have to be careful with. The second thing I would say is, as soon as you apply with credit with a CPN number and you're trying to apply for funding, you can get some funding. It's a given. You're going to probably get some funding, but here's the problem. The minute you get the funding, you're putting yourself into a database. It's connected with the United States Treasury for two reasons. Number one, what do normal creditors do if they fail to collect a debt that's owed to them, right? Typically what they would do is they would either sell it to a collection agency, but the first thing they do is they charge it off. In those instances, when a creditor is charging off debt, what it means is that they're essentially, taking it off their books. It's a write-off for them for tax reasons, right? It's a deduction for them. And when it's a deduction for them, that means that typically, if they wanted to file a claim with the IRS, it would be considered income for you. Now with the IRS, they have a record of who you are and your social security number, because typically that's what you would use to file your taxes, right? But let's assume you have a CPN that you got debt from, and that debt is written off, and then that creditor decides to file a claim with the IRS, and now the IRS looks at your name, and all of a sudden you have two different names, two different numbers with your name associated. And typically over time you're allowed to have multiple social security numbers, but you have to notify the authorities in reference to the change, or sometimes you have a lost social security number and you go through the Social Security Administration and you get a whole new number. But in these instances, what you've done is basically there's no affiliate activity with that specific 9 digits, and you're just looking at it in an IRS's perspective. It's like, well, hold on a second, this person used this card. There was no previous tax records of this number. There was no change or notification of change of that social security number. That basically opens up a gigantic can of worms. This is one of the biggest problems that a lot of people don't realize, technically speaking, when it comes to creditors. Now, if you're telling me, and there's no disrespect to any type of consumer who's trying to get a shortcut on credit, but if you're telling me that the attitude that you had with the social security number and the defaulted debt that you've just walked away from, that same attitude is not going to transition with CPN numbers, you're gravely mistaken. There's no significant change in the attitude. The first thing is that I would know that sincerely you're trying to fix your credit or you're trying to do better if you were trying to clean up your own backyard's mess, which is your own social security number, which is basically fixing your personal credit as it is. But instead, what a lot of people do is try to go for shortcuts, and they actually land themselves in a lot of trouble. There's a huge amount of danger to that. Well, obviously the Treasury one I just talked about, the IRS, is a huge one. And also, it's actually a felony. It's a crime under the United States Code, the Section 18, which is the criminal code in its entirety. In banking and basically borrowing, you cannot be deceitful in your practice when it comes to asking for funding. When an application states that you have to pull in your social security number there, that is exactly what you have to put in. If they ask you for your name, you're not going to put somebody else's name, because that becomes a fraudulent application that is filed against somebody else, which is the reason why identity theft is such a huge thing, right? So when you're taking another 9-digit number that you've never been assigned before, and you're putting your personal details there to get credit, and when it states your social security number, yet you're putting another 9-digit number in, you're actually causing a fraudulent application. You're creating that. When you do these type of things, you can actually put yourself in a very dangerous position, and you can actually get a prison sentence for that. You can get fined up to $1 million per instance or more, and it's going to destroy your basically financial future in its entirety, because this data is going to be entered into an internal database and a collective group of databases that's going to prevent you from accessing any type of credible funding in the future. So if you're looking to establish wealth, which I'm pretty sure you don't want to just sit around and do a 9 to 5 as expenses are going up and your income's not really moving, and you're sitting there stagnant and watching other people enjoy their life, I'm pretty sure that is not what your existence or your purpose is for. You're watching my channel for the mere purpose of building wealth, to understand credit, to leverage it, to establish more wealth. And I think the first step to understanding how to do that is to stay out of trouble, is to preserve the integrity of your character and its credit standing, the credibility that you have, and work with the existing issues that you have to fix them, to enhance it, and of course to try to find ways that are ethical when it comes to improving your personal credit. So, those are some of the dangers with the CPN number, aka credit privacy number. And the reason I wanted to shoot this video out, and another important side, is because a lot of people were questioning CPNs. They were questioning the authenticity of CPNs. Do they actually work, and do they function, and can you borrow based on using the CPN numbers? And the technicalities, yeah, for sure, but these are the dangers to it, and I wouldn't recommend it. I'd strongly urge you to stay away from it. And if somebody's selling your CPN services, they have no genuine interest towards helping you, because they can actually put you in a situation where you're basically jeopardizing not only your well-being but your time and your life. Because if you're spending time in prison, you're going to be stepping away from your family in whatever you're trying to do, and that's going to get you into a lot of trouble, and nobody wants to go through that. So those are my warning signs for those people who are looking for CPN numbers. Outside of the tax implications that you can potentially have, outside of the fraudulent applications and the criminal record that can be created on your behalf, outside of understanding the applications when we're asking you to fulfill a specific type of information and you're putting somebody else's info there, specifically the fact that it was not connected to you in the first place. All these type of dangers are very credible threats to your well-being. So you have to consider all these type of elements when it comes to CPN numbers. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. I hope you got the context of why CPNs are dangerous and why I don't enforce or encourage you to get any of that. And I strongly urge you to stay away from them, because that's just a whole lot of can of worms that you absolutely don't want to get close to and stay away from. With that said, if you haven't subscribed yet, consider subscribing to this channel. Turn the notifications on to all, so every time there's new videos like these, you'll be first to be notified. And of course, there's a couple of more videos that are coming up. We're going to be teaching you about a lot of new stuff, including the dangers of doing identity theft credit sweeps, right? Some of the plausible threats there, and what are some of the things that's going to happen if you're not able to understand, how to function with a credible structure of doing a proper credit sweep, which I explain on my channel very clearly. So I want you guys to really pay attention to that, and of course, hopefully, you watch that video as it comes out. Okay, so with that said, this is your guide and mentor. If you like this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Leave me a comment below on some questions you might have in reference to CPN numbers, and if you have any other issues with it, or if you need some clarity, feel free to ask in the comment section below. At the same time, don't forget to share this video with those that you feel would benefit from the explanation that I just gave you in reference to CPN numbers. And once again, don't forget to subscribe, and don't forget to turn the notifications on. This is your guide and mentor, Tarafdar. Catch you guys on the next one. Bye for now.